dedicated to sustainability initiatives. These sessions are designed to provide valuable insights and collaborative opportunities for addressing global environmental challenges. Experts and thought leaders will share their knowledge and strategies, offering participants actionable solutions to advance sustainable practices across various sectors. This conference aims to foster innovation and commitment to sustainability, setting the stage for impactful future developments. We are honored to welcome Mr. Abdul Diwale Mohammed as our first speaker for today. As the founder and Group Executive President of the Africa-Asia Scholar Global Network and Chairman of the Global South Economic Forum, Mr. Mohammed brings a wealth of expertise and vision to our discussion. We look forward to his insights contribution as we delve into today's important topic, sustainability and leaders' responsibility. Put your hands together for Mr. Abdul Diwale Mohammed. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Asma. It's a pleasure being with you. Well, over there, it's evening in India. Over here in England, we're just about 1:30 in the afternoon. I want to thank EduFam Wadi to speak at this very important event. When we talk about sustainability, I mean, it's a very big issue, to be honest. And when I was asked to speak on this, the first question that I asked myself is that having to do the same thing we've always been doing, because we do have so many talk shows. But in reality, conferences are held almost about 1,000 conferences every day, almost over 1,000 webinars done every day. And yet we seem to not be achieving or doing the right things that will help us to get sustainability. I'll take it from my own experience. It's a very topical issue, and sustainability depends on what context we're using sustainability, but the organizers have narrowed it down by asking that I should speak about leaders' responsibility. First is what is sustainability? I think if you Google or if you check to know definition of sustainability, is a social goal for people to coexist. I repeat it, a social goal for people to coexist on Earth. Well, nowhere else than this Earth. And over a long period of time, that is, they should be able to coexist over a longer time because everybody has his own lifespan. And then it also states that sustainability usually has 3 dimensions. And these dimensions, which are 3, it's one about environment, one is about social, and the most important also about economy. So those are 3 dimensions about sustainability. And I'll go back to when the United Nations did come up with Millennium Development Goals. That was the year 2000. That's 24 years ago. And this was to last between 2000 and 2015. And well, we can't say we have a great scorecard within that 15 years between 2000 and 2015. But however, in 2013, realizing that 2 years later, the United Nations has to give us a scorecard regarding the achievement of the MDGs. They did set up a high-level committee, which was led by 3 people, then my former Prime Minister, David Cameron, the President of Liberia, and also the President of Indonesia. And they met in Bali, and believe you me, they came with the fundamental, the main, what I call it, the main sources or platform in which sustainability can be achieved. And what they said about 2 things. They said people-centered policies, renewed global partnership. So we expected then that United Nations was going to use partnership. because there was a working group set up also by the United Nations. And I remember Soros, who once later became president of the UN General Assembly, who co-chaired that meeting, said there was no foundation. And that without a foundation, the SDGs we all talk about would not be achievable. So I was so much concerned that the UN would take this seriously. But unfortunately, very unfortunately, in 2015, the UN came with 17 goals. Yeah. And even some of them overlap with each other. And it's worrisome that even all the universities across the world all then started this mantra of SDGs, SDGs, SDGs. Sustainability is right, because that is what, like I said, it has three dimensions, which is about economic, environment, and social. So there went the 17 goals, and the fact that also as a signatory to United Nations Global Compact, in my report to United Nations 2 years ago, and recently in March this year to the UN Secretary General, I did mention that we need to, change the tracks in which we've set for ourselves, because at the end of the day, but I was vindicated in the fact that this year, early this year, the UN and the report of the SGS confirmed that we have only achieved 15%. Probably it's 12, but 15%. Because we're talking about next 6 years, 2030. 9 years already gone. And we only scored 15%. So what do we do? So I have been highly concerned because I remember what do you call it? The Global Compact, the UNGC, we did have in the Southbank University in London. And when the participants were asked to, the Global Compact mainly is made of corporate firms as well as NGOs. And when they were asked to put a paste on the participants were asked to post on the wall which of the 17 goals they belong to or they aspire to achieve. Oh my God. Can you believe there was nobody that went to partnership with the 17 goals? I had to call the organizers' attention. I said, it is amazing that everybody's here on these 17 goals and nobody's going to partnership. Yet, that is the major, that should be the foundation even for SDGs. But however, like I said, I was vindicated when the UN itself cried out and came out that we've only achieved 12, 15%, and we only have 6 years to go. But in my last report to the writing of the SDGs, which is online of the United Nations, I did mention to the president, to the UN Secretary General, that we can really look at things because we can still achieve, I'm not saying we can achieve a lot, because sometimes when we set targets, you need to be very careful. Leaders are not setting realistic targets. And it's unfortunate that when you fail completely, it does not really help. But I will cut short my speech because I also believe that if you're going to speak somewhere, please, because most of all will criticize. But I can tell you, I criticize, and I always say, if you don't have a solution, don't criticize, because we love criticizing. We speak a lot, we talk a lot, too academic in our attitudes. Now, I think we know skills are very important. Now, so we've been taking on a long coastal ride, and then if we go and look at 2018 in Davos in Switzerland, the World Economic Forum, which is the main forum that actually sometimes drives the policies of the world. I remember then 2018, what's his name? Who is now, the name goes away from my mind. Sometimes even though people say he's a very popular person, Donald Trump. That now then he had the largest delegate to come to that conference in Davos. And that was the 48th conference of the World Economic Forum, which for the first time in history, they had women to co-chair the conference. And I was very pleased and very happy that at least the World Economic can know the potentials of women. But unfortunately, again, I could say that they have worldly women from different parts of the world that came in, but except Africa women, which was non-existent at that conference as leaders to chair the conference. And I was pleased about it, and I sent it to the UN. And then that was when it was declared, boldly declared, which I commend also the World Economic Forum to declare that our world is fractured. And I think if and since 2015, 2018, I've never seen anybody that tells me and said, yeah, the world is not fractured and fragmented. But however, what we did as an organization, first of all, is to find out why we fractured system and what can we do to make sure we can rebuild the bricks of our fractured world. So I did a bit intensive research, and then I called for a meeting with the UN Women in New York. And on the 19th of July, 2018, sat at the headquarters of the UN Women, sat with the theme with the Undersecretary General and Executive Director. And I might also state that some of us, when we meet with the UN, rather than being honest and sincere, we feel, oh, now we can join the hierarchy of the United Nations partners. You want to be a member of DESA, you want to be a member of this. And if you don't be a member of DESA or be a member of any other body within the UN, you have not achieving or you're not making contribution to society. And I told the UN Women that we need to also redefine, the objectives and the mission of the UN Women. Because if you look at the animal kingdom, how they protect their little ones, the children, whatever. What have we done? We have failed our children. We have failed our children. I used to do years back, about 40 years ago, when I set up something on children. I had an orphanage in Africa and Nigeria particularly. And I then also the first African children organization in UK, in the Westminster. And 2010, that was 14 years ago, I realized that we don't really care about children anywhere in the world. We don't care about children. And anybody can see today, because after all, even 2018, that's about 6 years ago that we were told that we have a fractured world. So I realized in 2010 that we don't care about children all over the world. So I now realize that if we have good policies that are more diverse, just like I said earlier, the meeting in Bali where the leaders then mentioned with their resolution that we should have renewed global partnership, which is very essential, people-centered policies. So in that basis, I felt if we have good policies, that actually more diverse. Because what we do in the world today, imagine even the UK where I am, 3, 4, 5 years, we always say we're going to recession. And that is, Britain is about the second or third when you talk about, it's going down a bit now, but one of the London there, I think New York, and then now London now, sometimes New York, the same as London, the financial capital of the world. Well, sometimes 3, 5 years we say recession. And I wonder, with all the experts that we all know, so the system we have has been retrogressive. The system we have in the world today, where it makes human to compete against each other, whereas sustainability is about, what will I call it? It's about engagement within peoples, coexist. That's what it is. And that's why partnership could have been the foundation, could have been, well, let me go back to my report to the United Nations Secretary General, that if we can now concentrate, because we have put partnership on the last of the goals, and say partnership for achieving the goals. If we concentrate on partnership, and all we need to do is to bring different, professionals, let's not professionals, but let's say organizations who are working on agriculture, organizations that are working on either biodiversity or climate change, organizations that are working on education, organizations that are working on different aspects of life, social life particularly. Let them work together as partners. And if they're able to work as partners, because there's no transparent partnership anywhere in the world. We have to be honest with ourselves. People are scared about survival. Even some of us are even afraid of our shadows. So the issue is that, and this is what started right from even when we were all children. And I wonder, every child is born with a great wealth, and which is a hobby. But the system makes you to feel you must have to learn this, learn without you understanding what that child, that that gift that child has brought to the world. That's why you find from kindergarten, you have children running, and some of them become great stars in sports. By the time they're 14, 15 years old, they are experts in their field. So that's sustainability, because they have been supported with the idea, knowledge, and experience they have right from childhood. But then you ask a question, what about other children that don't like sports? Nobody cares about that. And then when you now ask children to meet in the classroom to do the exam, some of them are autistic. A lot of young people, some of them cannot memorize. So that's why they say, treat every child differently. Within that, children have different background, different understanding. So you cannot group them together and say, yes, all of them must treat in the same way. But what do you do when you do exams? You throw exams to them, so you expect about 3/4 of them to fail, and those that what the system has guide together, that will be your cooks, your gardeners, your drivers. Not that they don't have got skill, but the system has failed them even before they start life. And then again, after that, some of the young people can't afford to tell their parents they're failures, or rather will they want to go and see they're inferior to their classroom. So they start to cheat in the classroom. And what that leads to, it leads to them becoming fraudulent in their way of life. And then that's what we now have, institutional corruption. And yet now we have cybercrime, we have prisons all over, we spend billions or whatever, and then because we do not really manage, because we can manage people. And if you can manage people, you can manage society, then what leadership have you done? But however, it's not a fast-track thing that we have to do. So our organization believes that what we need to do is to plant a new seed completely. The fact that even they say we're all fractured, let's then plant a new seed. And then even in terms of the 3-point solution, which I even mentioned to the UN Women Director General in 19th of July 2018. I said the 3 things. 1, we need to review international rule of law. That is very important because there are many laws that actually abrogate and has not been very progressive and even divide and very distortive to even development of young people. I'll even take about labor. Because of time, we'll not be able to stress how much, but on one alone you can talk about is your policies about employment. And you see a lot of young people who are suffering under that, but it's almost like a law that goes across every part of the world, the way our young people have to grow up and become, what will I call it, they become not able, in debt, that in their life they're always in debt and their poverty is always there. So then if we start to review international law, gradually it may be in 30 years, 40 years, we can start getting right. We can talk about equity. We can talk about, what would I call it, being inclusiveness, which is there. We have to start with that to be able to have equity. But then, and fairness, judgment, we have to justice, as I can say, justice, fairness, and, so that we need to look at that. We're serious as human, as people, knowing that we're in this world. It's like what I call it, it's like a relay race. We're all here in the world to pass the button. We can't stay long, you can't stay in this world. So pass the button, but are you passing this button? That's what matters most. But when people don't care about, and people say they care, when I use the word and say we don't care about children over the world, people wonder, what the hell is he talking about? But the point is that because you love your child and you look after your child, doesn't mean you love children. What about those kids out there? If you don't look after them, then you don't even care about your child. The child you're going to live in society. So I don't know how. Oh, gosh. Now, the point is that, like I said, I'm not a group of just, criticizing. Our organization has been working over the last 14 years. I personally have raised over 45 million pounds supporting children in my life. But ever since we decided that people don't like children or love children, let's now look at policy. And that's why we went back as far as 2013, 1955, what happened, the Asia-Africa Conference in Bandung, Indonesia. And we felt that was, if we can be, because what they've done, they still mark their 60th anniversary. Next year is going to be 70th anniversary. Indonesia is already planning how they're going to successfully celebrate 70th anniversary of Asia-African Conference. But what have you achieved with it? Because the governments are meeting, they're discussing, but they don't involve the civil society. So what we did was to set up the Africa-Asia Scholars Global Network. And believe you me, because some of us are too in a hurry to say we want to make change. It's not possible in the world we are today. You have to, even I can say what I'm doing today, I might not be able to see the dividends coming up during my time, but all I'm saying is let's lay the foundation for change. And so what we're doing, because a lot of people have been frustrated with the system, they want to do good things or whatever, but they get frustrated. I remember when even the UN Secretary General agreed that there's racism within the United Nations. It's like it's come like a claw. So what I have asked is that we need to reform, and not just reform, because even when Dr. Kofi Annan was there, Secretary General, may so rest in peace, he even came up with this SDGs. And then with the current president, the current Secretary General of the United Nations, he is a very fact. I love him as a person because he's very sincere. It's like he wants to do a lot, but example is what is happening in Gaza, in Palestine, Israel, when the whole world said, Israel, stop this war. And what's happening? Nobody. He said, well, everybody go to hell if you can. So what is the law we have today? That tells you the decadence of our society. And then we said, let's first look at the rule of law. Let's start to see how people are being marginalized. How can we start finding equity, justice, and fairness in that? It might take 50 years before we get right. Let's start somewhere. That's number one. Number two, because I only have three. Number two, if you look at the morals of what do you call it? The morals of, morals are totally gone in our education, our society. And so more young people, no respect for elders. The rest of it is all there. And we all accept it, we all say it, and we do not do nothing about it. So the second one is about we need to review, not review, but we need to, we talk about morals, we talk parenting and teaching. They're totally gone. So we need to go back to raise the value of parenting and teaching, so that parents can be able to do what is right. Not just the children, because and then they have to look at the children. So, but let's try to review and raise the value of parenting and teaching. It's very important. And there are many ways to do it, but it's going to take a while. Because at the moment now, it's like nobody cares, in parenting, nobody cares about, because we rather spend money, like I said earlier, make them monsters, build the prisons for them, and end of the day, what happens? So we have government that end of the day, and people ask, who is government? People put people into position of governance. But then there is no trust between the government and the people. The people too, between the people and the government. So, and then people go and vote and pay tax to the government. And when it comes to the issue of working with government, most of them will say, oh, leave them alone. Then I ask the question, if you don't believe in the governance you created, why did you pay tax? So the basis is that we need to go on a drawing table. Well, I've said about the reason, the value of parenting and teaching, bringing the morals back. The third one, which is very, very important, is about the African adage. It says it takes a village to raise a child, not a family. At the moment now, it's just my family, my family, my family. Your family, you're going to meet people you never even met before. Your children are going to meet people in an environment that you never even expect. But then all you say is my family. Whereas it takes a village to raise a child. Until we all believe that every child is everybody's child. And so all this is going to take a while to do. But let's start the process. Those are the three things that we're working on, which will be the basis for the new seed we're planting, and we are searching for people who care about humanity, because humanity, we don't care. So we want to find people who believe in humanity. Let's come together. There is so much we can do, because we have failed in managing human beings, in managing people. And that's one of the things that is missing even in our universities. When you go in university or in the schools and then you're not taught about how to manage people, then how can you be an entrepreneur? Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to look at some people. And the most important is to manage, to invest in people. It's the greatest achievement you could make in life. Because when you do that, it is a level of building trust. So when I said earlier about the issue of we have to do research and find out what is the best way, rather than having put children in a classroom for them to do exams, knowing that for the quarter will be failed, so they can't move forward, they can't go to university or go to technical school. What do we do? So what we have, even I say, give example. When you take children to the laboratory, you don't have, you always have them in groups in the labs. So if we can do that, what happens with that is that in the lab, like when you say, turn the larva to pupa, turn pupa to butterfly. It's been done in the what they call in the lab. So what happens there is that because the kids are working together, so there's no someone to say, oh, I'm better than you, you're better than me. But the point is, it even builds partnership, it builds trust among the children. And so that is something that they live with, they grow with, and make society a better place. But when in society where everybody is competing, I always ask a question. If, for instance, a minute or two, the hair is not there for you to breathe. We know if you go to the hospital, you might have to pay oxygen. You know how much expensive to get oxygen, to get hair. But you are getting it free. And then again, we have the large arable land for us to crop even ordinary, the war between Ukraine and Russia, just the wheat alone. A lot of countries are saying, they're going to, there's no there's food insecurity. With the arable land we have, everybody wants to work in the office. Everybody wants, and then they understand. I always ask the question. We talk about building a city, smart cities. Smart cities for who? When I look at Maryland in Washington, D.C., you see the level of people moving from Maryland into Washington, D.C. And in the night, in the evening, about 6 o'clock, you see a lot of them again. It's like a movement. So I wonder why this large number of procession from in the morning all moving. And why do that? Because they can afford to live in Washington, D.C. Just like you have in New Delhi. Let me give you an example in New Delhi, and you have Nadia, and the number of people moving and the traffic and everything. And yet, it creates a more problem when it comes to health issues. Why are we not developing the rural areas, the rural communities? And there are many ways in which you could build habitats, we could build properties. We're doing research now, most of the properties that are being built with bamboo, with rattan. And so there are ways to reduce the issue of poverty. But the point is that we are looking after a few people to look after, you can't have 10 people to look after 10,000 people. You have to empower more people. So we disempower young people almost every day. So when we talk about today now is no longer about your certificate, it's about skills. What skills have you got? So it took us many years to now find that the issue of having to further go into, I want a big university, because the young people, if it doesn't get university, feel, oh my God, I'm a dunce. But it's just after almost how many, 4 decades, 5 decades, or 20, 10 decades, we now realize that, oh, skills are much better. And then artificial intelligence, fourth industrial revolution has caught up with us. And now even most universities are not changing their curriculum, knowing the fact that most of the profession would be needless by the time our young people come out. And you also realize that most of and I always say something when I think Brawijaya, that was how many years back when I was asked to look at the issue of university entrepreneurship. And then I realized that in universities, we have very, very innovative lecturers, which even this is something that's spread across the world, because we have a structure in our universities which is totally also retrogressive or non-progressive at all, because you have 15% of our lecturers highly creative. But guess what? Most of them are exploiting university, because most of them have become consultants, either to the World Bank, the United Nations, to big industries, to big companies. And at the end of the day, all they use is just to use university. I would say probably use as a cover-up. And then you have another 15%, also very creative lecturers. But they don't have the kind of contacts that the first 15% have. So that's about 30%. And I can tell you, in all our universities, not less than 50% all waiting for their pension. So how can such people bring up vibrant young people? And we hope with time, we'll have a solution where if you are a consultant, the reality is not the place for you, so that you can concentrate 100% of your time on these young people. And also the aspect is that this university is also, these lecturers, is that most of them have never worked before. They've used all the time in the classroom teaching young people. And so we're asking, if you don't have an work experience, you can be teaching young people. Because most of these young people, when they graduate and they get out there, they are in a totally different world. And so they've been misled. But now, going to SDGs, I've mentioned about that. We mentioned the fractured world. The aspect there is that what do you do? So what we did, I remember it was 8 years ago, the former president, the former Secretary General of the Association of Arab Universities was very impressed when we said there's need. Because it's unfortunate that 85% of the population of the world, which we call, is based in developing countries. And that's what we call the Global South. And it was when I saw that the World Economic Forum, there's not much impact we can see from the World Economic Forum that impacts on the life and environment of the people in developing countries. And that was what led us, after the meeting with the women, UN Women in New York in 2018, that it led us to establish and register the Global South Economic Forum. So our process now is to look at Global South Economic Forum. And our main task is to work closely with the G77 at the UN, where everybody calls up UN. But most people who even are leaders within the developing countries of Global South don't even know about the G77 at the UN. And yet the G77 at the UN, which is the largest body in the UN itself that represents developing countries, they hardly be known. And they are marking their 60th anniversary, 60, this year. That's 60th of, so the issues that we want to see how much we work with them. And you also have what is called the South Center. Your President Yerere, that was chairman of the South Commission. And that's what transcends where you now have, I know that over the years, the United Nations, quite a bad thing, I think that was 1949. 1949, they've had this idea of the Global South. And then I think 1978, they then have a technical meeting which they had in Brazil, and then they came up and then they set up the UN office of the SASA Corporation, which is also responsible now for developing countries. Because if we don't take care of developing countries, the world can never, ever. And that's why my concentration, my organization is on the Global South. And what we've done, what we've achieved, and I want to commend the current Secretary General of the Association of Africa, Arab Universities, the current Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, the current also of the Association of Asia Pacific Universities, and even I commend the Asia Pacific Universities, AUAP, so much because sometimes, most of us are not ready to sacrifice. But the fact that we breathe alone, I think we got a great gift that we breathe, but we fail to realize that. And most people are asking for something, they're asking probably their God, they're asking people, but they never ask themselves a question, how much have I given? If only we understand one thing, that we don't own our lives. We are all just walking corpses. We're just here, because we all have a time. There's a time for all of us. And if you realize that, we need to see how much have I given to society? And so when you have leaders, the leaders are the people you believe that have the sense of the spirit of humanity in them. But unfortunately today, even most of our young people, they want to become celebrities. And none of the media will tell them that once you become a celebrity, you are a product. You are a product. And most of the celebrities, they live false lives. Because I remember when I was young, my mother used to say, don't you deceive me. And I told her she meant that I shouldn't deceive her, but it was not to deceive myself. So I think morality is very important, because leadership, it entails a lot of things. So basically, and I want to thank you for saying that you like me to, and I'll make efforts to ensure that I could attend. But I'll tell you that the foundation for SDGs to at least be a bit successful to a level is for the United Nations to try and ask or get organizations in different fields to see what they've achieved in partnership. And when people can see that groups coming together, they're achieving better than when they're alone, maybe that will start instilling about issue of trust among ourselves. And one of the things, if you look at the record of each president of the UN General Assembly, which is topmost whatever in the world today, Most of them that come in, they always say, and they only have 1 year. They always say, I would try to instill and build trust. And trust is the greater thing. If we can't trust ourselves, can't trust people, what is the essence of community? We need to start thinking of partnership, because all we always say is that, how am I sure I'm going to have my daily bread? How am I sure that I can sustain, my organization, because I cannot tell people in the meeting about other things. So we need to start believing that there is more for everybody when we come together than when we are just alone. And this is very important. So without that, there's not going to be any sustainability. Because when there's no trust, and when we say that we talk about fractured world, which we all know what it is to be fractured, a fragmented society, that's what we are. And then we talk about sustainability is about social, environment, and economy. Ask ourselves, what have we achieved economically? What achieved environment? What achieved social? I think we need to rethink, and we're close to this. The United Nations, I think, a forum for something which they're having, and I think we come with a newsletter on that, and to see whether the UN would change. Rather than going 17 goals, they say poverty, and you cannot eliminate poverty. All you can do is to reduce it substantially. So we need to be careful the words we use, even when you lay those who put the demo of the United Nations, whatever. So we need to be honest with ourselves about humanity. Let me use this to thank you all. And we're willing, anyone can get in touch with Dr. Halima Sadia, who is also a member of ASGON. She's been a wonderful lady. Because she was part of when we said we're going to create what you call the Global South Research, Innovation, Peace, and Technology for Sustainable Development. And I'm glad that even the Prime Minister of Jordan accepted to be a patron of that. We were supposed to launch the Global South Investors Association in Jordan, but unfortunately, with the Palestine and Israel dilemma problems, or the war, so-called war, it wasn't a conducive for us to be able to go and launch the program. So we're working with other countries. We're working because we believe that whatever we do, we work with government. We are government. So why should we work differently? The civil society should be patient enough to try and build a trust among those who are in the government. Maybe they need some cooperation, they need some understanding, they need some education or whatever. Build their trust and work together, because if you work alone as an NGO, you can't achieve much for the society. The government is so powerful. Work with them to trust each other, and then to help more, to elevate the level of those you're helping the community. Thank you very much. And I also want to use to thank Dr. Ram. What you've been doing, I think I've been by the side watching the great things you're doing there in Singapore. And Dr. Sadia, I also commend you for great work you're doing. So thank you very much. And I wish you'll have a very wonderful conference in September. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving us insights on how each individual, whether a parent, an educator, or any person, to retain their moral ethics in themselves and in children as well, as they are going to be the future generation. And yes, each one of us are equally responsible for the global sustainability and its growth. Next, we are delighted to welcome Dr. Halima